Hi everybody, Buzz here from Buzzing Around the World. I am in Piran, Slovenia. Piran used to be part of the Republic of Venice until the late 1700s, 1797 I believe. Today it is part of Slovenia, and it is one of the few parts of Slovenia that's not landlocked that touches the Adriatic Sea. Some of the top attractions here are walking the city walls, walking around Old Town, and walking around by the Adriatic Sea. Unfortunately, the clock tower, which you can see behind me, is closed to renovations, but the city walls have just as good, if not better, views of the city of Piran. To get to Piran, I took the bus from Ljubljana at a cost of just over 10 euros. It took about 2 hours to arrive. From the bus station, it took about 15 minutes to walk to the main entrance of Piran. Tourist cars are not allowed within the city limits of Piran. If you want to take your own car or a rental car, you'll need to park in the car park just past the bus station. At this point, I just crossed into the city limits of Piran. You'll notice the road is very narrow, and with buses and pedestrians and cyclists coming in all directions, you've got to be really careful to make sure you don't get hit. In no time, I was in Tartini Square. This is the main square in Piran. The original Tartini Square dates back to the Middle Ages, although most of the current buildings are post-1890s. 3 of the 4 sides of Tartini Square are flanked with buildings, and the last side of Tartini Square opens up to the Adriatic Sea and the port of Piran. I was in Piran during the Christmas holiday, and there was a giant Christmas tree in Tartini Square. There were also Christmas markets. I'm not sure if those markets are typically open throughout the year or if they were special for the Christmas holiday. Tartini Square is named after Giuseppe Tartini, who was an Italian composer and violinist. There is a bronze statue of him in the middle of the square. After spending some time in Tartini Square, I decided to get lost walking the streets of Old Town Piran. The streets of Old Town Piran reminded me a lot of Venice, which would make sense, as for much of its history, Piran was part of the Republic of Venice. The best way I can describe walking through Old Town Piran, it's very similar to walking through Venice if there was no water or no canals. You won't really get lost in Old Town Piran, as most of the roads eventually open up to either the Adriatic Sea or Tartini Square. You can see here I'm coming up to the end of one of the streets, and it opens up to a road and a pathway that follow the Adriatic Sea. I was surprised by how much ground I'd covered walking through Old Town Piran. If you look back at the red and green lighthouses, you can see that's where I started my journey. This path here follows the city of Piran around the Adriatic Sea. As I continued to walk, I came across many access points where I could actually access the Adriatic Sea. I was in Piran during late December, and there weren't any people swimming in the water, but I did see a variety of boats as well as some paddleboarders enjoying a nice December day on the Adriatic Sea. When I got to this building, I was kind of confused on what it was. I thought it was a church, and if you look in the interior, it looks a lot like a church, but it was actually the famous Piran Lighthouse. Like the clock tower, the Piran Lighthouse was also under renovation. At this point, I was getting close to getting to the end of the walking path. The walking path dead ends at a bluffy area, and you'll notice right before that bluffy area is a colorful mural. If you walk just a little bit past that colorful mural, there'll be one last access point to the Adriatic Sea. I'm not sure if this is actually a beach during the summertime, but it was one of the few points where you could actually walk out on a rocky beach rather than following steps right into the water. The next part of my day in Piran was walking up to see St. George's Cathedral. St. George's Cathedral is located on a bluff, and it provides an excellent view of Piran and Tartini Square. The walk is a little bit strenuous. It involves walking up some steps and a little bit of a ramp, but it's nothing that a person in shape can't handle. It's definitely worth going up to the bluff by St. George's Cathedral, as it provides a stunning view of the area around Piran. I did go inside St. George's Cathedral, and anytime I go inside a place of worship, I always ask if pictures and video are okay. The person told me that pictures were fine, but they'd prefer if I didn't take video. So the only video I took from my visit to St. George Cathedral was of the outside and the amazing view. Here's a panoramic view. You can see the red and green lighthouse there. That's Tartini Square in the middle. You can see how Tartini Square opens up to the Adriatic Sea as well. And then off to the left, you won't quite be able to see it in this shot, are the Piran City Walls, which would be my next stop. That would be a much more strenuous climb, as you'll see in just a moment. Typically, anybody visiting St. George's Cathedral has the option of climbing the clock tower. The clock tower is reasonably priced at just €2 to access the top. Unfortunately, during my visit, the clock tower was closed for renovations. So to get the best view of Piran, I had to walk up to the Piran City Walls. To get up to the Piran City Walls, it involves walking up a windy cobblestone road. At the top of the cobblestone road, it flattens out, and then there is an entry point to the Piran City Walls. The entrance is very reasonable at €3. My entire visit to the Piran City Walls, I only saw one other person. Be sure to take your time exploring the various areas, as there are definitely some points that offer better views than the others. You can see here my view is still pretty well blocked by the trees. Although this is a spectacular view, there's a much better viewpoint near the end of the Piran Walls. To get to this viewpoint, just continue walking, and eventually there'll be what I guess was at one point a lookout tower. Climbing to the top of the lookout tower is a difficult task, as it's more like climbing up a ladder, but you will be rewarded with excellent views of not only the Piran City Walls, but the best view of Old Town Piran and Tartini Square. This panoramic shot right here, you can see the clock tower. It's right in the center of the screen right now. There's Tartini Square. You can see the Piran Lighthouse just to the left of the clock tower. And then eventually you can see Piran Harbor with the red and green lighthouses. This is the best view in all of Piran, and I highly recommend climbing the city walls to take in this view. This viewpoint also has some information that points to the directions of the city of Venice and Zagreb, Croatia. These were the stairs that I had to climb up. I wasn't brave enough to film climbing up them, but I was able to film climbing down them. If I had to do this again, I probably would have turned around and walked down it like a ladder. It was now time to leave the Piran City Walls. I retraced my steps and followed the same route down that I took up. This involved walking down that cobblestone road once again, and eventually I ended up back in Tartini Square. From Tartini Square, I decided to walk out into the port of Piran. You can walk on a pier to both the red and green lighthouses, although they're accessible from different parts of the pier. Here I am walking out to the red lighthouse. There were some people fishing along the sides here, although I did not see if they caught anything. Just to the left of the red lighthouse is where the bus station is located. I would eventually have to walk back there to catch my bus back to Ljubljana. I recommend walking to at least one of the edges of the piers of the two lighthouses. When you turn around, you get a good view of Piran Harbor, and then a good view of the clock tower, as well as some of the other buildings. Here I am walking back along the pier, and then eventually I am going to follow the pier to the right and end back up at the bus station. I spent about 4 to 5 hours in Piran, and it was definitely one of the more underrated places I've ever visited. From Piran, Slovenia, up here on the city walls, this is Buzz from Buzzing Around the World. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and hit subscribe. Until next time, happy travels.